Hey everyone, and welcome. My name's Aaron, and today I thought it would be fun to do a update of my pedalboard for 2018. I did a pedalboard video a few years ago, one of the first videos I did on this channel, and I wanted to kind of give you a little update and specifically talk today about how I use it when I play live. Today's video is sponsored by DistroKid. DistroKid is a service you use to get your music up on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Google Play, all the other stores. There's a number of these different services. DistroKid is just the best one for a few reasons. Number one, it's the cheapest, $19.99 to get unlimited songs up online and they don't take any royalties. Number two, they're the fastest. They get it up so fast. I've uploaded songs and it's up like the next day on Spotify. It's crazy. Number three, it's really simple and easy to use. One little page for the upload form, name of the song, here's the file, upload it, good to go. So check them out for sure. If you use the link below, you can actually get a little discount. So click that link and check them out for yourself. All right, so today, getting into this board. I love this thing. It's really fun to use. Today, I want to go through just each pedal really briefly, just the setting that it's on and kind of how I use it live. And then also, I want to talk about this guy over here, this Ditto X4 looper pedal and how I use it with Ableton when I play live. So that'll be fun. So first of all, I'm going into a couple pedals that are always on. Well, really one that's always on and one that's sometimes on. But these are the only pedals that are not in this switching system, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So the first pedal is my compressor pedal, the Cali 76 Deluxe. Compact Deluxe by Origin Effects. So here's my just clean tone, 100% clean. Middle pickup going into my Jackson amp. And then turn on the compressor. So it just sustains forever, but in a beautiful, transparent way. It's just the best compressor. Just take my word for it. I've tried a lot of them. That's the best one. The other pedal up here that you can see, this little green one, is the Emerald Prince Preamp by Henretta Engineering. This is just a really simple pedal that boosts your signal a little bit and darkens it a little bit. It's actually the preamp section from an Echoplex tape delay. And these are, highly revered. There's other pedals that do the same thing, like the EP Booster, very similar kind of thing. What I use this for is when I'm playing my Telecaster or a single coil guitar, it boosts it so it's more similar to something like the Starcaster. And then it also darkens the tone just a little bit so it's not so much brighter. So that way I can kind of keep my gain structure where it's at and I don't have to change too much stuff on the amp when I'm switching guitars. Just to demo that for you, here's the sound, again, dry. Then I'll kick on this Emerald Prince. Like I said, boosts it a little bit, darkens it a little bit. All my other pedals go into this Moen GEC 9 effects routing system. Instead of plugging one pedal into the next pedal, into the next pedal, into the next pedal, and all the way down the chain, instead, all of the pedals go into this thing. The reason I do that is so that this thing is now controlling which pedals are on and which pedals are off. So all of the pedals individually, just manually, are always on. And this thing puts the different ones in the chain or not. And that way I can turn 3 pedals on and 4 pedals off just with one foot switch. And the way I do that is I've got presets here that I can sort of scroll through. And I've got banks as well. A through I, banks, and then 5 presets per bank. And so usually the way I'll do this is I'll have a song per bank. So a song on bank A, and then here's a sound, here's another sound, here's another sound, and I got 5 sounds. Usually I don't have more than 5 sounds per song, so it works out great. The way you turn on different pedals on each preset is really easy. You just push these little buttons down here. So if I want, let's go to a bank I'm kind of not using. And let's say I want my Pog, my Reverb, my Timeline, and my Lightspeed on. Boom, I just programmed a preset. I go off of that preset, it remembers it. When I go back to it, there's no like holding down to save. It's as easy as that, which that's why I like this one. It's just because it's dead simple. And for the most part, this thing has worked great. It's sort of like a poor man's gig rig G2. The G2 has a ton of other options, but it's very similar in operation to something like this. So also that way with a system like this, if I don't have any pedals on, I'm just going into this compressor and then into this routing system and then out to the amp. So I'm not going through all of the circuitry of the pedals or the cables. And so it cuts down on noise as well. So the rig ends up being very quiet. So let's go through these pedals just one by one. I'll go through them in the order that they are in the chain. So first up, my Hudson Electronics Broadcast. Here's my dry signal, just unaffected going into the amp. And here is the broadcast. So, full range, big, aggressive, amazing sounding overdrive. It's my favorite overdrive pedal. Next one, the Greer amps Lightspeed. So the Lightspeed is a little more polite, a little prettier. It's a very pretty overdrive to me. Very smooth sounding, not as much low end, not as aggressive as something like the Broadcast. So when I want to do just a nice kind of chord, let's turn on my delay and reverb here. Chimey and lovely overdrive pedal. Next one in the chain, Lovepedal Amp 11. Yes, very aggressive. Much more compressed than the Broadcast. It's aggressive like the Broadcast, less low end, more compressed, and the notes just sustain forever. So that's, you know, if I'm doing a lead thing and I just want the notes to just sustain forever. It's also got, you saw me switch in and out that boost. This is like a bias control, which I don't totally understand, but it just sort of saturates the sound rather than boosting level. It just kind of saturates it more and more and makes it even more crazy and compressed sounding. Next pedal, Wampler Tumnus. So, sort of a subtle overdrive. It's definitely that mid-pushed thing. It's reminiscent of Klon Centaur. That's kind of what they're going for with this pedal. But what I love about it is that mid-push really sticks out in a mix. So I end up actually using this overdrive a lot, even though, you know, to the naked ear and just in the room here, it's probably the most subtle of all of the overdrives. But it actually works really well to just push the guitar through the mix, and so I use that a lot when I play live. Moving on past overdrives to modulation effects are sort of the next things in the chain. The first one is this Electro Harmonix POG 2. It's the polyphonic octave generator. This thing is an octave pedal. You can do an octave above, an octave below, 2 octaves above, and 2 octaves below, or any combination in between. You have these little sliders to do that. You also have this effects section, which you can use to do like an auto swell and also a little detune so it can sort of sound chorusy. The other cool thing is you can save presets. So there's 8 presets there that you can scroll through with that button. And so you can, get your sound and then save it and then recall it later, which is really helpful. The thing I use it for is kind of this auto swell with upper octave, which sounds like this. So if I'm doing an ambient thing, I'll combine that sound with some like big lush reverb and it'll just sort of sound like angels singing. And then the other thing I use it for is this crazy preset 3 here. I've got this like lower and upper octave for this crazy lead I do at the end of one of the songs. So that's really fun. We'll come back to that later. That is a very versatile pedal. Can use it for a ton of things. Next is the Strymon Mobius. This is like multi-effects for modulation. I use it 90% of the time. I'm on some kind of tremolo. I would just get a tremolo pedal, but I like that this gives me the option if I ever want a flanger or a rotary speaker or a phaser or whatever million else things this thing has. I have that ability without having to go out and borrow somebody's pedal or buy something from Guitar Center and then return it. I also use it in conjunction with the Timeline, which I'll show you in a second. Next pedal is the Timeline, the Strymon Timeline. This is a delay pedal. Have you heard of this one? One unique thing I have going is I've got this AMT expression pedal hooked up to the Timeline, and I've got it programmed the way I've set up these presets to increase repeats and increase mix as I push this pedal. So as you could hear there, what it sort of allows me to do is like I use this thing almost like a piano sustain pedal, which I'm a piano player actually before I'm a guitar player. So that makes a lot of sense to me when if I just hit a big chord and I just want it to kind of keep going without hitting it again, I'll just, push this pedal and it very subtly sort of just keeps the chord going. And so that works really well. The other thing I've got the Mobius slave to the Timeline for presets. So when I switch a preset on the Timeline, it switches it also on the Mobius. So when I'm programming my sounds, I just program this sound to correspond with this sound in the same song. And the way I did that is I just hooked a MIDI cable up from the output of the Timeline to the input of the Mobius, and that's just how it worked. By the way, on the Timeline, 99% of the time I'm using this tape delay just because I like the way it sort of degrades the repeats and rolls off and modulates and things like that. I just think it's really pretty. I wish I had a real tape delay. I played one recently in the studio, and I almost cried with how good it sounded. There really is something to it. It's not just like smoke and mirrors that those things cost so much and people talk about them. It was a crazy experience hearing that thing. It was amazing. So real tape delay, hey, if you got it, use it, especially in the studio. Moving on from there, we've got my first reverb, which is this MXR M300 Reverb. I use it on this Epic setting. Just kind of a basic, that's probably even a little too much decay and a little too much blend. Just sort of a basic reverb. The cool thing about this is it's got all these different modes here. You push this button and you can go through plate, spring, Epic, mod, room, or pad. And they all sound great. And I like that I have those options for reverb. If I want to do a spring reverb thing in the studio, or a room reverb. I've got options for that with that one. Then my next reverb is this Crazy Tube Circuits Splash Mark III. That one is like the more epic sounding one. Very pretty sounding. You're probably seeing a theme here. Pretty sounds. That's what I like. Love pretty sounds. That's it. That's the pedals. I use some combination of all of that stuff. So the way I use this live is, like I said, I will program on my GEC 9. I'll program my presets per song. So I've got my, song A here, whatever that happens to be. And this is kind of my first sound in the song. Next sound, next sound, next sound, next sound. And then I'll program the BPM into the timeline, and then I will dial up a preset on the Mobius if that's in a certain song, which it is in this one, which I'm going to show you. So this Ditto X4 looper over here, what's going on with this? This is a looper pedal where you play something in and then you loop it. So if I'm going to play. And it's got two separate loops, which you can stack on top of each other. You can record multiple things onto each loop. You can control the decay, that is, how long is the loop gonna go before it dies off. Or you can just have it go forever, which is what I do. And then there's also effects that you can do to your loop. So you can make it go double time, half speed, you can make it reverse, or you can make it stop. You can hold on a certain loop. You can do all kinds of crazy things. Now, a lot of people use these looper pedals if you're like a one-man band, one-woman band, and you're gonna play some, drums into your looper pedal and loop something, and then loop something on top, and then loop your voice or whatever. But the way I wanted to use it was in the context of the band. I wanted to play a part and then loop that part and then play a part on top of it. But the problem is, we use Ableton Live for playback of tracks. And so the problem is getting those two things in sync with one another. So what I did was, I'm coming MIDI out of Ableton, and it's generating a click called MIDI beat clock. And that's going into the input of the Ditto X4 down there. And when it does that, the Ditto X4 slaves its tempo to Ableton. So if I hit, loop 1 or whatever, and I want to start recording, it's going to default to the next quarter note of whatever Ableton is giving it. So it's going to basically line up the loop exactly with the record start and stop times with Ableton. All that to say, it keeps it perfectly in sync with our playback tracks. And I'm going to show you kind of how I use it here in just a second. So we have a song. It's actually like a 7-minute song called Love is Calling, where I use this looper and I play a lot of different sounds. So I'm just gonna hit go on Ableton here, and I'm gonna attempt to play it the way I play it live. And I will sort of take breaks to tell you what I'm doing as I'm doing it, if I can do that. I will probably mess up. It's never quite the same when I do this, but that's part of the fun. So let's go, let's try it. So that's the first loop there. So the first loop is going, you might have heard me, I played through it once, and then the second time I recorded it, and now it's playing back. There's singing going on during this verse, and I've just got my timeline on. This is my first preset. I let this go for 4 repetitions, and then after this one, I'm gonna hit loop 2, and we're gonna play the second part. Here we go. 1, 2. So now that one's going. While this is going, I'll switch to my next preset, which is this ambient thing. And I'm gonna record this on top of loop 2 for the chorus, which is coming up here. In a 1, 2, 3, 4. So all of that's going now in the background. I've got 2 loops on loop 2 and 1 loop on loop 1, all going simultaneously, all synced up to Ableton. You can see that stop button is blinking with the tempo of the song. And then I switch to my next preset, which is this little solo thing. This is verse 2, and you might have seen what I did there was I stopped both loops and then I started loop 1 again because I don't want loop 2 going, I just want loop 1 during the verses. I'm actually going to clear loop 2 here by holding down, and then I'm going to record that same second part onto loop 1 so that I can use loop 2 for something else that you'll see later. So here's that second loop. I'm going to go on loop 1 here, right here. So now both those 2 parts are on loop 1. And then on the last repetition, I'm gonna play that ambient thing right here. So this is the second chorus. I actually was supposed to come in with this other part, which I'll come in with now. So just playing this live, and then go into that solo thing again. So again, since I recorded that ambient thing only on loop 2, I was able to stop both loops for this little breakdown section and just turn on loop 2. And then the band comes back in, like doing a halftime thing here, and I'm going to turn on loop 1. So live here, I'm not actually doing much. I'll sometimes play a little fiddly solo. But usually I'll just let the band go. The drums are doing cool stuff here, so. And then we come into full time again here. Here's the next change. Sort of trading trading off lead lines with a synth. Okay, so it got a little squirrely there at the end of that song. It always kind of does, and that's part of the fun, is that it's just crazy what I'm trying to do with this song. Maybe it's not that crazy, but it feels real crazy for me. But it's also really exciting, for crying out loud. I mean, it's a challenge to kind of get all those parts right. I'll explain. What I was doing at the end there was I was sort of like turning on some of these effects to just make this, you know, this sort of chaotic thing happen and then come back into line. And then at the very end of this song, I do this tape stop thing. And then the crowd goes wild. That's how we roll. This is kind of like my way of using the knowledge I have and the technical expertise to like be really creative and have a lot of fun when we're doing a live performance. I can't like rip, you know, an amazing technical solo, but I can use what I know about gear and about syncing up stuff and about looping and whatever to express myself in that way. So I think that's the cool thing about technology and pedals and things like that, is it allows you to sort of get these feelings that are inside out into the world, and hopefully they inspire you and inspire other people when you're playing live. So I hope you enjoyed that. That's just a little demo of how I use this thing live. Let me know if you have any specific questions for me, technical or otherwise, in the comments below. Thanks for watching today, and we'll see you all next time.